Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dawn Snyder. I am the Director of Education for the Art Directors Guild. And with great pleasure, I'm going to introduce our guests today. We have Millicent and Frankie Smith. They are going to be talking about Mill's latest book called Fizzy Days Plastic Monkeys, from Crewe to Malibu. And both of these folks are storyboard artists. So we're also going to get some chatting about their adventures through storyboard artist work and the people that they've met along the way. So I'm going to let them take it from here. This is just going to be a fun discussion, folks. So hold on to your seat and follow along. And so sorry. I forgot to give a little background on who you guys are. So Mills credits his latest film as a storyboard artist is this game's called Murder. Also did Ouija and a film I'm sure we've all heard of called The Incredible Hulk, and one that many of us have seen, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Mill also works on many commercials, and he's a writer, obviously. We're talking about his book today. He's also written a script for a short called Date with an Angel. So that's Mill. And Frankie has created poster art for a short called Hero from Outer Space. She has also done some concept art for another short called Rift. And as a storyboard artist, some of her credits include the feature, which is in post-production right now, called Quasi. So there you go. Take it away, you guys.
Right, well, I'll jump in then and say, and then this is the book. This is the book that I've put together, chronicling my journey as a storyboard guy. This was a book that was supposed to come out with a $3 million feature, and that after 20 years, I've stumbled at the starting blocks and written this. It's a book that stands alone on its own now. That it's not the making of the Fizzy Days, which was my film, the short film. I've made a short film, 30-minute short film, that was made to raise money for a feature, and that was what I used to as the basis for the book. But as my note taking grew and grew, and I realized that, you know, as a storyboarder, we meet lots of people, we board lots of things, we've got lots of aspirations. There's it's quite a life if you chronicle it down. And I thought other people would be interested in, what we actually do. And I've tried to keep it so that it's available for the layman. It's filmmaking and all the, all the bits and the nitty gritty that go into what we do, and how people in the pub, when you mention that, oh, I'm a storyboarder, they don't just let it lie. It's, oh, you do? What does that mean? What do you do? Unless you're drinking with a load of storyboard buddies, then they actually know what you do. So that's a redundant conversation. But to people that don't, it seems like from the people that have bought the book and reviewed it, it doesn't have to be, it's an interesting journey anyway. Well, making a film is like giving birth to a baby, and right. There's a whole lot of stuff goes into making that baby. A whole lot of work goes into bringing that baby up right. To as far as you can, and that's what, as I said, my basis for the book is a short film that I'd made, a script I'd written, with the prospective idea of getting it made into a feature. And it's what, if all of us, every storyboard guy, every creative has a little project on the side, or they have 10 little projects on the side. We've all got scripts, we've all got graphic novels, we've all got ideas, a set of boards that you think that you just, or drawings that we kick off and you on a rainy day, and we build on them. We think, oh, this is going somewhere. This is gonna, and this is my take on how and what the tenacity you need to bring it to people who might be able to do something with what you're doing, be it writing or storyboarding or what.
Yeah, and so we're going to go upon this journey, because I know that there's a lot of storyboarders, be it very new to the business, new to the industry, or somewhat of a veteran. and or like a multi year veteran. And the thought is, because I know that and I'm not a veteran, I'm pretty new to the industry, but one of the thoughts I had is in the background, it's always I've always been interested in making a movie about and the process. And but it's only recently that I became a storyboard artist for that, for the reason that I love, movies. I love film. However, it's always still been in the back of my head. It's like, I've never been a writer. I don't know if I could do this, and And I've had friends, mutual friends in the industry that have said, no, just do it. And you talk about that in your book, but you also, never really wanted to, it never came to you in your early years of being a storyboard artist. You kind of stumbled upon it. But the first interest you had, though, was about making a movie, about films, and which is really interesting because you started working at about like in your teens, like when you're 15 or 16, in a converted cinema house, or theater.
That's the starting point. That's the romance. Yeah. It's the Ennio Morricone score, Cinema Paradiso.
Yes.
The blood and guts of the changing tires in slaughterhouses, and up on the cinema roof there, looking at old bits of celluloid there and thinking, hey, look at this is a world away. And hanging out in the old projectionist box. I'm working with a guy that fathered his kids at 14 and 15, and I'm thinking, this is the working class. And again, the story is, we all like to rub our working class roots, boy done good, and that was the Crewe is like a Fresno craphole, Malibu slightly different, but there's a world between the two.
Oh, it's a universe away from like a typical film setting,
Yeah, well, but the journey right. is, yes. It is that the cliche rags to riches, as it were. I mean, I never dreamed. I mean, people, that's a romantic version. If you're in the film industry, Hollywood, instantly you can stop a conversation, providing you're not in Hollywood as a storyboarder. But it's that. Mm-hmm. Doing the storyboards, it's like my background was, same as everyone. Pretty much, we went to art college. We never even heard of storyboards. What are they? All as I'd got some pretty drawings that I think I said that served to showcase, how unemployable I was rather than how employable. And it was, like, well, how can, but I lived in the north of England, so provincial roots. Got me pouring day, got me thumb, stuck it on the freeway, got covered in porridge, and then finally ended up in London. And then London, wandering around for I think a month, as I said, living on ciggies and coffee. Finally got a job where the guy said I could work for a few weeks for free, and that was the best, most fulfilling, rewarding, free decision I was to ever make, because that catapulted me onto to here,
because that was that advertising house, correct? And that's where you started working on storyboards, because that was their bread and butter. Commercial storyboards.
It was in the 80s where we didn't have nothing's digital, obviously. And strangely enough, the first commercials I worked on were the Ridley Scott Apple commercials, 1984, I guess, 1985. 10 minutes ago, if you ask me. But again, I my job there was not necessarily as a, it was walking the owner's dog and, clearing up after the evening's cocaine-fueled parties. But, gradually you got better at what you did. I stayed there. I had nowhere else to go, stayed there as long as I could till midnight, on midnight every night, watching what these guys that were making a living were doing and how they made a living. And it was all brush pen then on a piece of paper, and you colored it non-smudge, you colored it with magic markers. And I did that for several years before I started paying attention to, pop video, early 80s, pop videos came in. It was all over the place. So you were able to go and hang out, you know, you'd go and watch commercials. I would go and watch them being shot at Pinewood or Borehamwood, and just see what's it. So what is this magical world? What is all this, you know, and see what, and, you know, I always had a quick style for drawing. So it was, the directors would like me to come along, and then after a while they'd accept you saying, well, why don't we, here's, we could do it. So you'd think, hey, this is great. We, you know, people that you respect then said, well, you should, after a good while in London, after 10 years in London, you should go to America. They're crying out. They're crying out for directors over there if you're serious about it. So that was
because when I was reading this part of in your book, the things that started coming to mind, because when you said you went to London and you to get work at this advertising house, and how the guy who ran it, who owned it, he was like he looked like a rock star himself, you know, was very flashy and whatnot. So I remember my days of when I was living in Portland, Oregon, and there's like Wyden and Kennedy, everybody, you know, involved in Wyden and Kennedy's was in Portland, Oregon, and I had friends that worked there, and that was like a very similar vibe. And it was like that time where because Wyden and Kennedy became popular because they worked on that Honda motor scooter commercial spot that blew up. And so advertising art started, you know, and commercials started becoming like a trendy thing, an in thing. And so when you mentioned in your book, it's like, when you went to London and you got working at advertising agency, I was, it was like in Portland, and you know, you could do that in Portland and stuff. Yeah. But the road that got you there is interesting, because you, like you mentioned about Crewe is like this working class. You refer to it as the armpit of was it
of the UK? It's referred. Bill Bryson refers to it in Notes from a Small Island as the armpit of the UK, and he said, you know, it's more like an elbow. You know, it's even one of the editors on the book said, you know, we can say it's shit, you know, because it really is. And then I thought, well, wait a minute, I've still got family back there. I don't want to keep using the adjective shit. Right? They're not getting. Hey, but I mean, the characters were so far. You know, one moment I'm covered in offal underneath a tractor, you know, with guys, skinheads, and I've poured gallons of animal entrails over me. Then next, I'm in this wonderful world where everybody drives a Bentley and a Porsche, and even some of the storyboard artists in the mid-80s had got Ferrari Dinos, and it's like, this is madness. And yet Duncan and his Armani suits and his Paul Smith gear, tons of cocaine, tons of everything available, tons of women. And it's like, it was so far removed from my working day, you know, a year ago, to what I ended up in this advertising world, where, you know, the likes of Ridley Scott would come in, and people would come in, and there would be, you know, it was a world that was, you know, my job in that world was to go and, you know, as I said in episodes, was to find Duncan, who was my original boss, his Land Rover and his dog, who by the time I found the Land Rover somewhere in London, West End, the dog had shit all over everything. I had to drive the thing back. And it was those things. But then I also got to drive his 1955 XK 150, you know, so I could be up and down Bond Street and I could pretend I was Duncan. It was the silly contrasts that, again, as we move through life, you know, and you write them down, you think, oh, that's quite interesting. That's funny.
Well, let's go back to when you first got, you know, the item that has become the nickname for this motorbike, has become the part of the title of your book and the title of your short film, and soon to be feature.
It is.
To say, right. Yeah. The dream has not died, folks. It's, you know, and we're here to tell you how to get to this point. Right.
Galaxy
so
Quest, never give in.
Yeah. So I went ahead and got some pictures of, and you mentioned it was purple, the one that you got, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Here it is. Here now. This is just a photo I found via Google, so not yours. But this is I think it's a I don't want to say refurbished, but it's it is a 1975 FS1E, a Yamaha FS1E, and then I think here is another.
And you'll notice the pedals on
one.
it. That you notice
Yes.
the pedals? That was the
Here we go.
difference. You guys in America,
Yeah.
you guys in America could drive a car at 60. I think you can drive them at 15. Well, the only
Yeah.
transport we could have was a motorized bicycle. And the Japanese, clever little buggers, came up with the Fizzy, which was really a little motorbike with
Yeah.
with pedals attached, and yet it was capable of 50 miles an hour. A little backstory on that was, up until 1970, 71, the English could drive a 16-year-old youth could drive a 750 motorcycle. And you could drive any size motorcycle, but so many people getting killed on the highways on these powerful bikes, 750cc. You could drive what the law stipulated you had to be 17 and pass your driving test to drive anything bigger than a motorized bicycle. And so the market dropped out for, you know, people being able to buy a bike that was powerful and big to ride as a youngster. And that's where the Japanese came in and they put together this little speedy bauble in 1970. And so everybody, all the youth of the day at 16, like the youth, the American youth, that you could go for your Chevrolets or whatever, your hot rod cars. We couldn't. We could only ride these little things.
Oh, wow.
That was until you were 17, you had to pass your test. So the market for these became massive. But the silly thing about it, these were fast little machines for 50cc. So the death rate on these equaled and surpassed the 750 motorcycle. The reason it was brought in was completely made redundant. But for the point of this book, the point of the book, the point of the film, the movie that I wanted to make, because it's a coming of age film. It's basically that represented your first romantic liaison, you know, because the one of the strap lines we've got, get the right ride, you can pull the birds. And, you know, you felt that you were a man on your motorbike. You could go and see your girlfriend who lived, you know, 5 miles away. And you know, but you felt, and you'd got your full face helmet on. So all this was, but they were 200 quid. So my story at Fizzy Days is about, it's basically, it's a robbery caper, and it's 4 lads trying to get 200 quid together by robbing the local supermarket to get the money so as they could purchase a Fizzy. And the Fizzy ultimately was the key to young ladies' virginal parts. You thought that was, once you'd got that, you were up with anyone, you know, that was what it was about. It wasn't so much a motorcycle, it was the autonomy of the open road. It's your first love. It's what it represented once you'd got it. And the film script that the feature film script is that once it comes full circle, once you have, you know, we all aspire to this ideal, and once we have it, we find out that maybe that isn't what we were after all the time. There's more to life than a shiny moped or the pretty girl that couldn't give, you know, that can't stand you. It's a very simple tale, but it enabled me to weave in a lot of visual situations and a lot of humor that again, the book chronicles the number of close misses I had with people that it came so close, you know, within London and it wouldn't be the United States. I know a number of people in the States wanted, can we change the bikes to cars, which spoilt it completely. But that's what Fizzy is about. And that's what the FS1E was, a Fizzy. And it was the best little moped for 3 or 4 years in England. It represented glam rock. It represented a time when it was austerity in England in the early 70s. It was the strikes. It was the bin strikes, the rail strikes, the postal strike, a bit like now, actually. And that, look at the little colours of it. There's a little gold one, a little pink. That sort of it was your glam rock. It was your Kiss. It was your T-Rex, it was your Mud Slade, Bay City Rollers. All that was this bike. And that's why I just thought, as buttons to touch for a project, well, the soundtrack in itself is fantastic. and the nostalgia that people have for this. These are now, they cost £200 all those years ago. Grown men like myself now have paid £10,000 for these. They're something people put in their living room and they stroke, or their bedroom. It's
well, it's funny because LA is has this very strong car culture, and it actually it's one of the things about LA that really attracted me to LA, besides the movie industry, because I love motorcycles and cars as much, and the thing I was when I first saw the photos of these bikes or these mopeds, what's really funny is that this size of motorcycle, I mean, this is no different than a lot of the electric bikes that are on the road everywhere. And
it's 50 cc.
Yeah, it's about a similar size, and also the shape of it is very similar to a cafe rider. And they're bulkier, which I love cafe riders personally, but and which is what struck me when I first saw the photos of these bikes. Now, I don't know if everybody else here is in tune about this type of talk, but I love this stuff. But
as a kid, if this was your transport, that would be a cafe. You'd put a fairing on it. You'd put clip-ons on it. It would be a cafe bike. But it was your, I don't know what would be a kid when you were 17 or 16, what was the car that everybody aspired to in the States? What was that?
Oh my God.
As a kid, what realistically you hope to own?
Camaro, a Camaro.
Camaro, Or realistically?
Mine was a Mustang. Mine's a Mustang. And that has never changed.
And it's like that's what you'd like your boyfriend to come and pick you up in, or whatever. The same as the girls at this. When you were at school, because we could drive these at school still. So the lads that would turn up at school at the end of the school drive, that's cool. They were like gods. It was tight. The Titans have arrived.
That's cool. So, and I think I got a picture here. Let me see. Here, this is this picture here.
Oh,
there you go.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, I'm the second from the right. That's with me. I'm second from the right.
Yeah. So everyone, if you get his book, you'll get a better resolution of this photo.
Yeah. But I posted the film on YouTube the other day. So the short film, the 30-minute film, is on there, and I just funnily, ironically, something just popped through on the email, just a few emails down, and it's the first comment, and it says, I remember this, I saw this, it's such a shame it was never made into a feature, And
it's also, it's what I mentioned during our chat yesterday, but it's also, or the other day, rather, if you look up the bike, the Yamaha FS1E on Wikipedia, your short film has a paragraph, is mentioned.
That's good, and so it should. That's with we're off to the races.
It's in there.
Yeah.
So I did copious research for this. So, but I don't know if like I mentioned, this is the 1976, and there's not really much. This looks just a little bit in terms of, it looks like a little bit bigger. It might, or is it just?
No, it's just got down bars on it, and it has a disc brake.
The 1970.
Everything's the same.
Yeah,
that's what these buggers are in relation to my book about, and I've called it a storyboarding memoir, because it's basically, obviously, I ended up doing this project for, it's something that I'm still doing it 20 years, and like we joked the other day when people say, oh, this script took so much, it took 3 years to get off the ground, or 5 years to get off the ground, or 7, and to me now that's like you've been working on it the weekend then. It's not, it's so, hard. And then when you talked about I've done a few other scripts. Well, I've done over a dozen other scripts, and that are all ready with storyboards to present. It sounds like I haven't got a life outside trying to do something.
Well, no, I think back to, just quickly back to the Fizzy. So this page, this is where you mentioned that you got this book, a small Japanese popsicle purple 50cc moped, and then you refer to, then you said this is where this is the transition from boyhood to manhood. And And also, I love that in some of the chapters that you finish them off with a part of a rejection letter.
Yeah, yeah.
And I thought that was also, and I should mention that you start each chapter with a storyboard panel.
Yeah, yeah.
And which I totally love.
Well, the first page of the book is a page of rejection letters.
Yes.
The last letter is not, it is true, but the last letter is, dear writer, fuck off. Signed, sincerely, fuck off. Because they will not read your script. It's very, right. This is the thing about, the projects, as I was saying, it's very, very, alchemy to get somebody to jump on board with you.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but when you touched upon that in your book, and one of the things that popped in my head is that, that's because that's a big thing the last 10, 15 years. I know that the last time I was at San Diego Comic-Con, for instance, a lot of publishing houses that still went there, one of the first things they said is that they don't read submissions. They won't read them, because they're worried about copyrights and whatnot. So, and that seems to be the growing movement for a lot of things. So, which is interesting to me, especially if you have a script and you need to shop it around. Luckily, it doesn't seem to be that big of a problem in this town. But like, how do you get so you talked about your process in your book about getting the script out, and hence all these rejection letters. But you also received some bites, rather, some so there's
on that score though, and you use those. I mean, that's a cliche. The whole thing is a bit of a cliche. You keep it, you carry on, and that I start the book with Enrico, the fellow that played Matasar, never give in, never surrender. And that is, I start the book like that, and I finish the book like that. It's, people say, hey, maybe I've written a script, maybe you could storyboard it for me. And all my scripts, my dozen scripts, have 1,200 storyboard frames with them. They have lookbooks with them. They have style guides. They have projected budgets. They have, it makes no difference. It's, either they're all absolutely terrible, I don't know, maybe they are, but I'd like to think that 30 years in the industry has not left me with any innate inability to be able to put something together that people want. But people seem to think that, it doesn't matter what you've got. Like you just said earlier, the skill, and the greater skill, which is upsetting, seen as what we do is so creative, and it's storyboarding, it's writing. The skill in this industry, this business, is not the product. The skill is to be able to take that product and convince somebody that it needs making, it needs bringing out to a greater audience. So you just open your Instagram, open your Facebook, there's talent beyond measure. If you paint, there's talent beyond measure. If you write, there's writing beyond measure. If you storyboard, there's guys that can storyboard to death. It's not about the product, and that sounds that's crazy. Of course it isn't, but it's not. And it's and like I would use that analogy with the cookbook. You could get. Say if Arnold Schwarzenegger wrote a cookbook, he might not know nothing about cooking. It doesn't matter. You could also write the best cookbook in the world. You're a fantastic cook, the best chef. Nobody gives a toss. Arnie writes a book, they're gonna love it. Clooney writes a book, they're gonna love it. And that's the thing that, I don't know, that's the intangible mercurial alchemy that there's the frustration of trying to move a project in. And when you said, some people actually skip the creative process, very talented, and they go for so I was an intern for him, I was an intern for her. And they were able to parlay that into contacts and to people, real people that can make that happen. My friend has a film. I have a few ideas. Maybe if you sit down with a writer, you could flesh them out for a treatment maybe. And it's all, this world is it's not what you think. It's
well, it's what you mentioned in your book again is where a lot of these the powers that be place, you know, storyboard artists, and at one point you just said that, you know, we're not we're not considered to be the most important thing part of the process. I think and my thinking is that I think they and everybody else knows that we are the ones
in the business.
We are, and this is their way of trying to maintain control of their own project, is so is to put us in their little place. And I totally understand, because I always look at storyboarding as a collaborative effort, and this is one of the reasons why I love working with, you know, short films and low budget productions, is because I get the opportunity to fully collaborate with the director or the DP, and a few times it's, you know, the two combined, and we put this vision up, you know, together, and they feel they're so welcoming about that, and it becomes a wonderful process, and that's why I want to do this.
That's the enjoyable part of this job, though, is when you're working with somebody that, you know, that you're not there to just draw 800 frames as quickly as possible, and somebody actually wants your creative process to be part of the and, you know, that's again, and I keep coming back to these episodes in the book. We're the guys that we sit down, you know, that's what some of the jokey elements I've said, you know, we're the guys that sit down with the director, we're actually spitballing, and you can actually throw some ideas in, be it commercial scene or whatever, and yet a lot of the time the jelly handler or the jelly setter or the pepper sprinkler comes up on the credits before the storyboard guy.
You know? If the storyboard artist receives a credit at all.
Oh, and I think somebody storyboarded this. And that's not, I mean, as I said, I hate to sound negative. It's what the world does to you. But
or this industry rather.
But because it's, again, I've obviously enjoyed my time. I'm able to draw on lots of silly situations that I wouldn't have done otherwise if I hadn't been a storyboarder. And you talked initially, you know, the younger people that have not been in the business so long. I mean, I try and lay it out what you need to do, and the only thing that I impress on anybody is you draw. You know, you don't. And I mean, I came from my life class this morning. That's all you do. You make sure that you can draw.
Yes.
And, you know, there is no easy way around that. People go to, I think, art center here, isn't it? That it's you keep sketchbooks, you make notes, and that's the funny thing, isn't it? That's what this creative, you know, writing. I tend to, for me, I don't know why it is. I've always, with a blank piece of paper, equally I'm enthralled by writing on it as well as drawing. So I end up equally with bits, you know, oh, that's a good idea, and then you type, you know. So you know, it's a fantastic world to inhabit, but and the point of this, what I've written here, is to show people my experience of how hard it is, and films don't get made. And the elements that I talked to you the other day about, and when people say that song's crap, or you know, that book's crap, or that short film was rubbish, you know, I would never have done it. You know, look at the way they directed that, or look at that. They did it. They got something made, and we are able to talk about that crap film, that crap book, that crap picture, because it's in the world, it lives now. Whereas a lot of critics, be they your peers, friends, or whatever, you know, I would never have done. I mean, I hear that, oh yeah, it's not well directed. It's not like, you know. But this is on the short film, obviously, when people making studio movies and there's a budget involved. But as regards making films that with no budget, and as a lot of people do, that's how you start off. You can't, you know, everybody's a critic.
But it just shows you, though, you know, one of the things that this particular, that your book here shows, is that everybody has there's an individual voice. Everybody has individual life experiences, and it's not not all of it is crap. It's not crap. There's actually a story that can be told from a bit of anybody's life. And you took an interest. You took something that greatly interested you. That was a significant part of this life. In this part of the UK. And so, there's a story here, and I want to show everybody else in the world, why, this bike here, what it meant for the rest of us, why, when they come here, they're going to see this bike everywhere, and how important it was for my cultural upbringing, and it led to all these other avenues of interest, and which brought you here. And it also, in turn, it's mentioned in your book, you became a world traveler. So it allowed you to get out of this armpit, wonderful little working class town, lovingly referred to as the armpit, and it brought you to our shores, and it
the rest is purgatory.
And I think that's awesome.
And again, there's no reinvention of the wheel. Again, it's the same. Show, don't tell. Write what you know about, and we all our own personal stories. We, our divorce, our upbringing, our 2 weeks vacation that was from hell, our funny relative. We've all got inside our own personal take on a situation that can be, parlayed into a project, and that's from the point of view of writing something. But again, from storyboarding, it's exactly the same, because like I said to you initially, we all seem to have a little project on the side, whether we care to admit it or not, or somebody will look at the talent you've got, or something you've done, and say, I've got some ideas that you could work with. If you're willing, you could work with me on that, and stuff grows. So I've been tremendously lucky, in as much as that's the world I've inhabited, and that's what I try and bring across. All the little adventures come by trying to do a little further adventure. And I said to you, what my take on storyboarding was always that it was always a stepping stone to something else.
Yeah.
But while living in its own world itself, yes, because we're a tool for other people. We visualize their vision, which, as a storyboarder, you always, you have a vision. You can then think, oh wow, why don't we cut out the director and make one ourselves, and but it's not about that. There's other people who've got the platforms already. That's what I was talking about. It's getting people on board that if you want to do these singularly personal projects, or you want to move on from, you want to produce something creative,
right?
Then you've got to inhabit the world of producing stuff for other people. You've got to be a paintbrush for other people rather than a painter.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, but this brings up another thought. You just mentioned about these incredibly personal projects, and which this one was, and still and is. But at some point, and I read the transition. It was in the back of my head when I was reading this. But I'm going to keep talking.
Keep going. Sorry.
Okay.
I noticed I was sitting in the dark.
I know. I was going to say, you're getting kind of dark over there. But so I understand, like, a lot of these film projects, a lot of projects start as a very personal piece, in which this one obviously was and is. But at some point in the book, there is a point here when it starts transitioning to, like, okay, now it needs to become a film. It needs to become a project. So there's a certain percent of where you need a point where you need to set aside some of that it's personal to me. You need to set some of that aside, which you're going to need to, because it needs to become a film. And did that start becoming, more in the forefront of your thought process especially when you were sending the script out, trying to get that contract
very-
that you
very
finally
much,
received.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very much so, because again, there's a set of rules, you know. That's why, I mean, if you've written a script, then that's I'm afraid that's your box. The only way that script's going to get made is if you make it. You're not going to go to somebody with minimal directing experience or without a bag of further films that you've made and say, hey, would you want to make this? Because no. And you don't put exposition, you know, the direction doesn't go in a script, you know, that's the director's part, you know.
Right.
So immediately you show your amateurishness if you produce a script that, hey, it's got these great songs in it, hey, it's got this great, you know, it's a really groovy angles, we're going to do this from here, and whoa, no, it's not. Those are two animals. There's your own personal script. It's like you know, it's reading like I think Trudy Styler was going on. I was just read an article the other day about Guy Ritchie's Snatch, and she said that it was absolutely riddled. It was all over the place, you know. But whoa, it didn't really matter because he's doing it. He's, you know, you can't. But as an amateur, you know, somebody bringing it as a newbie, bringing a project, and this is for the, you know, obviously not anybody that's seasoned. Your script has to be professional, and it has to look professional. It has to have the idea that you're not going to direct it, you know. So all those lovely ideas you've got, you have to put them aside, or you make a short and you showcase how that little film project might look. Like Napoleon Dynamite, that was the same. They made a little short film. That's what was there. And like I said to you, I'd read, not erroneously, but stupidly, if you can entertain for 30 minutes, you can entertain for an hour and a half. You do a 90. That's the bar. But if you're trying to get recognition for your film within film festivals, nobody wants to run a 90 minutes, a 30-minute short film. They want to run 10 2-minute film, 3-minute films. So you then, and again, when I did mine, it was high definition tapes. It was pulling a crew together. Today you can race up and down Hollywood Boulevard with your iPhone 12, 14, whatever. You can get some great stuff. And what, you know, one thing that we joked about, and it keeps coming up, it was always funny in the book, is how many English provincial people know that you need permits to film somewhere.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know, despite wearing a glow jacket and racing around and, you know, closing the roads off, they know that, you've no right to be there. So that we came across a lot. And even I did the other film I did, another short film, motorcycle related, was because I thought I need another film that's just going to
Hell's Angel.
Hell's Angel, yeah. Putting that together, you know, obviously no permits for that. And racing, sorry, let me just turn this up. Racing around the Santa Monica Mountains without helmets on, driving Harley Davidsons up and down the Snake, you know, knowing for well that if we meet the sheriff or the squad car coming up, that there's going to be trouble, you know, and people will get the camera equipment confiscated. But all these elements, you've got to say, nope, want to do it, need to do it, got to do it. Never give in, never surrender.
Yeah, but the big challenge was to receive funding, and as well as to, you know, and to get that contract so that, you know, you could receive the funding to make this. And but also, just because you received got the contract and received the funding and even got a producer in line and whatnot, that didn't end all the tests that occurred in getting this production off the ground. You know, it was the start.
Yeah, the contract. This book is, how many contracts did I go through in this book?
Yeah,
and it was like the first lawyer I went to see. You know, I think it was something like $500 or $600 an hour, and 20 years ago that was a lot of money. And it was like, I said, no, sod that. I'm not doing. He says, I'll do it for free, contingency. And this was a Beverly Hills attorney, and I thought, no. And he says, because you know what, this might not be the first contract. And I thought, you know, bollocks to that. Of course, it's the first contract. It's the first and it's the last contract. But I had contracts with so many people, sat in so many Beverly Hills offices, with people that somewhat funded it, would be prepared to come what It's like the Kaleidoscope, as I said, they gave us an MG of £300,000, and they've distributed so many top-notch English movies, you know, like Notting Hill and you know, big movies. So our little film just seemed a great. It would be a shoe-in, but we couldn't, because of the inability of the producers the people I was hooking up with, and you never can tell that. Everyone talks a good game. I mean, I talk a good game. You don't know that they're absolutely rubbish. And we could not take that 300,000 and change that into 2 million. And I know that's, well, we, you know, but we had, you know, we had named actors, you know, we had, as I said, we talked to Ewan McGregor, we talked to, and that was so close, Sean Bean, John Hannah, Alison Steadman, so many people were tentatively on board, and we couldn't take all this piles of work and parlay it into a finished production. You know, that towards the end, my producer came and told me that she, you know, couldn't work on it quite as much because she'd got a job in a clothes shop. It's,
yeah, that's right. Yeah, when she called you and you had that that conversation with her, and she called it to let you know, it's like she got a job, and you're like, wait a minute, what do you mean you have a job? And she said, no, I got a job, and I'm going to be working in retail. It's like,
but her idea again was that it was, you know, we needed a name director. And then I would go to some of the more prominent people I would work with, and they, you know, and there's only so far you can push, you know, high, you know, hi Lance, you know, as I said, Lance McCord, I worked with him quite a lot, and he would always ask, you know, how's your movie going? And he's going, it'd be going great if you were DPing it, lads, you know. But nobody you can only do that so much. And Forecast, which we're a French company that you know, did $24 million movie prior to our, and I think that was my biggest mistake. I didn't know that movies took so long. I certainly didn't know they took 20 years. And I think a lot of that was after a couple of years with Forecast, I was the one that messed that up, for want of a better thing to say. But you never know. You never know where these things go. And I, you know, as I said, I mentioned I worked with Mark Cohen, who did all the Band of Brothers stuff, and I, you know, you're working away on his table, and so who are you presenting this stuff to, Mark? And keep it under your hat. It's going to Tom Hanks at the end of the week. So instantly, my package is on it. Is you know, all these people that you shouldn't be doing this shit, but you know, and it's like the fella. It's a fella that I met in. Tim Burton's producer, Orbison, and he popped in and stupidly said hi. Stupidly said hi, because and I so what are you doing on Tim Burton's production? I think it was Corpse Bride then, and he said I'm the I'm the producer, and instantly I shook his hand and said, well, you know, would you mind if I send you a project that's almost complete? It's almost and you could say, get off.
But you mentioned, you did mention in your book that a couple of things about this is that one of the things, and I know that from experience after moving here and living here, is you develop this sixth sense of when you know somebody is just spouting out a bunch of BS to you, especially when they're like, I could use you for this and stuff, you know, and they keep talking, and then never once do they talk about rates or paying you. you know, but they really want you to work on this project, and it's like, and then so in the back of my mind is like, yeah, this ain't gonna happen. But in how there's always that talk, especially with some of the meetings that you've had of where they just run through like, yeah, we could do this and this and this, and then in the back of your mind it's like, yeah, but they're not talking about, you know, putting down any money for this.
Lionsgate, it was Lionsgate, it was Sony, you know, I'm in Sony, I'm in Lionsgate, I'm in Warner Brothers, I'm in all these things. When you read these sort of books, you think it's a prelude to success, but I just managed to visit a lot of mainstream offices in and around Hollywood and the London film world. But again, it's given me something. It's given me something, because a lot of people have said, oh, well, the book ought to be, this is funny. I don't know what the script is, but maybe the book should be made into a film, So, who knows? And I've had since I mentioned to you, a couple of people have come back, or at least one, Baron, a guy that worked with Kubrick, so an older guy, but he's come back and taken one of my other scripts and shopping it around, and so Sky have it.
But this is all like so when I was reading your book, so in the back of my mind, because I got this from, let me see, is it right? Let me see if it's right here. Oh, here it is. I got this book at the Academy Museum. It's a magma sketchbook, and the reason why I got two of these, by the way. In the back, it has this page of production management, this checklist you have, and it that starts with short film budget, the title, the link, producer, blah blah blah, and then everything else. Pre-production, production, post-production, and I thought, oh, this is going to help me, so I know what I need to do. But when I was reading your book, and I talked, worked again with some short films, and one of the things I've come to realize is that this checklist means really, I mean, it's a nice little fairy tale, but a lot of times what these things are is this. Funding is such a big issue. Funding, getting the film out the door, and then once you get it made, the other big issue is getting it seen. And these will take up a filmmaker's time, and and time is money, and so reading through this in the back of my head through all this, it was like I was hitting like all the little check marks, almost similar to what the check marks are in here in this book. But then I realized, and I have this chapter 18 posted up here. But chapter 18, you start talking about post-production, and you go, oh my God, then there's this whole other issue about editing. You got to get an editor. You have to have the equipment to edit. And then it's like all these little things are just what I don't think a lot of people realize about making a short film. Or any film, because and we talked about this a couple of days ago, because we are in the pre-production period, and then once our work is done, the film moves on. There's like a couple horror features that I've boarded, and I don't think anything's ever come of them, as a matter of fact, because I was done. And that's the thing that people don't realize. It's like these film productions are in their own little worlds, and like pre-production storyboard artists, we're on one continent, and an ocean away is another set of production, part of the production that's at work. We're so far removed from each, in a lot of cases, from each level, and which also can make it rather daunting. It adds to the whole thing of it being daunting.
That's a filmmaker, isn't it? Almost any novice filmmaker, not novice, first time or more green filmmaker, they don't budget for post-production, which is going to cost you as much as I mean, today it's easier. You can do it on Pro, you can do it on a phone, you can do it on a 4K, you can do it on different cameras, you can do it. It's simpler today. But again, you've still got to get somebody who knows what they're doing. Unless you do it yourself, unless you can do it yourself. Right. But these are all the elements that, onlining, offlining, even right down to the simplest type. When you get your DVDs, oh, wow, it's a proper film. I made a DVD, which we don't do anymore. So it's, then you've got to get that into the festival. So that was a stunner for me, that it's not easy. Yeah. And set festivals were, festivals were $50 a pop, sort of thing. So after the first dozen, you realize that, wait a minute, this is still good. And then when they're in, you go, right, I'm in. So that means I've got to go. Damn, where is it? You know, and then, right. So, and then when you get there, my experience was some of the, you know, it was funny. It's of some of the places was the fact that you are sat there in a 500-seat cinema with half a dozen people, with maybe another half a dozen people waiting for you to move or get out so that they can watch their film from the middle where you were sitting. And it was, it's all these elements that are, so the layman doesn't know. Oh, you know, it's like those guys in the supermarket when we were, you know, making a film. Are you? It's yeah. Should be done in a minute. On your TV soon, folks. But,
Did you make a website for your short? Because that's another thing. That's another thing people don't realize. It's like, yeah,
at the time when the original with the prospective cast, like I've said, with the with the A-listers that we for some reason thought would be coming along, they were all on the website. We were it's a producer is a very important person, and a producer that can produce is even better. And they're mercurial, and it's somebody that can raise finances. You know, all this is all down to how much production, post-production can you do. And I go into that. Every chapter is about how I went about doing this, and there would have been different endings if it was different people. You know, who knows? But it's a whole world that I'm able to inhabit, and even now, and I've written it down as a guide, a cautionary tale. For anybody wanting to do their graphic novel, their script, and what to do with their script, what to do with their set of storyboards, or, you know, if somebody comes to you and says, hey, do you want to do, you know, I've written a script, do you want, you know, if you bought it, we can make it into a movie, we can get financing. That might be more tricky than you'd think. You know, it's
yeah. So where are you at now with this? So the book, the book came out. And I think it's wonderful. I think it has it is a wonderful outline.
Thank you. That's very nice.
Yeah, but it's a wonderful outline for anybody who has just been, this has been in the back of their minds of something they want to do, and it provides them like a tale of what you went through, what one, you know, somebody in the industry went through to get, you know, their film made. And as well as their short film. But so where are you at current, you know, right now with this project?
With this particular project, it's on the back burner, but it's in as much as I've got a little older now. I'm 20 years older than when I wrote it. I wrote it in 2003. So that, you know, and I end the book as, you know, we're still at it. We are. It exists, and that's why I was going back to anybody that does anything, do it. It's once you make it alive. Fizzy at the moment exists as this book. It's a script. It's a set of storyboards. It's a lookbook. It's a budget. It's a casting. It's a whole load of pre-production. It's a pre-production project. But I've moved on to other projects now that are perhaps a little more, you know, obviously it's some of the elements are dated now. I've been in and looked at it. It went out a few weeks ago, only because this book makes me pick it up and go, bollocks, I've got to, you know, never give in. So it's still, it's alive, but it's resting. You know, it's in the lay-by of pre-production. And that's, you know, I will polish it and dust it off. But again, it's like selling the book. The book is with a small, complete publisher. And nobody really sees it. You guys have seen it. It's the people that have bought it. It seems to slowly be making a little bit of a mark. I was surprised it went up into the filmmaking Amazon. It got up into the top 100, which did surprise me.
Well, that's where it actually should be there. It's like, it's what's neat about it. What sets it aside from a lot of the typical filmmaking type books is that this in itself is more of a tale. It's more of a story of you traveling traveling through these various lanes of trying to get your project, but what brought you to that point? And because I don't think people realize that that you know filmmakers come from all different types of backgrounds.
Yeah.
And you know, so we have a tendency to well, I guess maybe we either it's from taking it for granted because we were in the industry, or we just forget about this, because once they get to this a certain point, be it like the award shows or awards and or like film festivals, we think that, oh, that this is what they've always wanted to do, and or something,
Have
but
you
this
seen,
no
have you seen Trevor Goring's book?
Yes, I have it. I have it. I have it right over. Yes, I have that. Yes.
He was very kind in his summarization of what, because he's in it. I mean, Trevor is one of the guys that I knocked around with, but it was good to have people in the industry, whether it's writers who've read it and have been kind about it. It gives me heart that maybe there may be something will occur with Fizzy at some point. I think he said the same. This should be the movie. I mean, that's easy. I'm sure everybody wants their book I'm sure everyone wants their script and their book to be the movie.
Well, yeah, but like some of my favorite films are like a working class UK, like be it like you mentioned Gregory's Girl, but it's like Danny Boyle has that wonderful movie called
Danny Boyle, yeah, I mean, he's the archetypal.
But he has that. He has that wonderful movie called Millions that not very many people have seen.
That's right. Yes, that was a good film. Yeah.
Oh, I love that movie.
Those 60s stuff, like it's like I wrote that script, as I said, and I asked if Tony or Ridley, sent it along to them guys from working quite a bit at RSA 15 years ago. 15 years ago now, and I based it on Cares, which is a film that perhaps as Americans haven't seen, but it's about an injured hawk. It's a hawk, a boy's relationship with a hawk, and it's a premise almost, but it's a wonderful film, about relationships and coming of age and anger and angst and what where it can take you and what can happen. And I always thought that it's a lovely tiny script, and I've written another one called Screech, where I've turned it into it's a red hawk in in the San Bernardinos, and it's a Latino drug problem, and and that's when I sent it to them and said, they were complimentary, but said, Paul Giacometti's just done The Hawk is Dying, and it doesn't half look like your script, and it's it's just keep going, keep writing, keep writing, and somewhere along the lines.
Yeah, so somebody like I know I've talked to a few Thursday nights I go to Tonga Hut, and it's a lot of ADG folks and a few other storyboard artists, and we all chat over stuff, and a lot of times we do talk about cars over tiki drinks. But one of the things that I remember having a discussion about was like writing, and I've never seen myself as a writer because I'm more obviously a visual person or a visual artist, but a couple of them just said, just start writing. So at what point did you just like, I'm just going to just start writing and putting this stuff out there, and I'm just going to, because it sounds like you've written like 4 or 5 different scripts. So somebody,
I've written over a dozen at this point.
Okay.
As well as short films. But like I said to you when we talked the other day, and this sounds odd. Well, no, it doesn't sound odd, so I'll keep it not odd. But when you read other people's scripts, it's not something that because we read a ton of scripts, don't we? Yeah. People send us scripts, and then you read production scripts that you're working on, and you're thinking, or you're thinking that, and you think, well, I could do this. And why wouldn't you do this if I'm sure people, if people put their mind to it, they could storyboard, they could draw, they could paint. If you put your mind to it, you can do it. And that was going back to, and whether it's any good or not, I mean, because somebody said to me, come on, Mel, if this was any good, somebody would have made it. And you know what? There's a certain truism to that that you can't get away from, because stuff gets made, bad stuff gets made, good stuff, So if you can't even get what you consider good stuff made, there must be serious flaws. But what put me into it was reading other people's scripts, and then being able to, on the internet, you can send for scripts. So you can go and read the script to Snatch, you can read the script to 1970, you can read everything.
Yep.
So you can read all that now, and you can then pace yourself and think, well, do I know any set scenes? Do I have an arc, a story? Do I have a curve that, you know, what did I used to do in Portland with my boyfriend picking me up in Mustang, or did my however, you know, or what did I do? You know, hey, I remember one of the lads stealing something, and then, you know, and it was, oh, you know, that would be funny. And or an animal, a relationship you had, or something that went terribly wrong, or something that went terribly right. And then you put the little parts, you know, a little page here, a little storyboard. I'm just waiting for the director. I'm going to write 2 pages here, and then I'll put them over there. And then you know, and it's like I'm working on something at the moment that I've just got. This was all handwritten. Oh, wow. You know, there's chapters and chapters and chapters, but I used to just to do that. And then I've just noticed now that while it just occurred to me that I pulled out a box, and there it was. Well, wait a minute, let's tap it up and stick it in, see where it goes, do a few thousand storyboards. Maybe I can send it off to a director. I'll see, you know, it's always never give in, never surrender.
Yeah, that's how, you know, that's how, when I made the decision that and I just thinking, you know, after our talk, and I just sat down and started thinking through my process and how I got here. And I know that there's very rare, have you heard people that say, yeah, I'm going to be a storyboard artist, but that was me. I came from being a freelance illustrator. But as soon as I knew that I wanted to be a storyboard artist, I scoured the internet and found all these sites that provide free scripts. You know, you can just download. I would just pick scenes and just board them. And I picked like some really old films, because I know these were movies I hadn't seen recently, and I didn't want to board any movies that were, you know, I just seen within the last like 5-6 months or within the year. So you could find scripts everywhere. And I just recently worked on, or I'm still actually working on this non-union low budget film, or low budget feature. And I wasn't sure about the project at first till he sent me the script, and I read the script. I was like, oh my God, this is an awesome thriller. And I just started diving into Hitchcock and studying Hitchcock and again, and because it's a fantastic script. And that's the thing. It's like once you read that, I mean, we read, read and see a lot of scripts, but when you get that one good script, it's like you're captured, and you can't wait to draw this and these scenes.
Like a good book, you should be able to fly through it. You know, this is interesting. This is, you know, it's when you have to slog through it. But it's I think it's just that accessibility, like you just said, to stuff, and you can say, you know, can I do this? And I didn't do it because I want to be a writer. I wanted to make movies. That's what I didn't write. I didn't board because I wanted to be a storyboarder. I wanted to make movies. I didn't write. The reason I wrote was because my scripts, my storyboard, my movie needed a script, you know, and then it needed storyboards. And that brings me back to, I didn't even know what story, when I finished, you know, I fell into storyboarding by chance. I visualize, I draw. That's what I do. And that's what storyboarding is. So luckily the two fit together just pretty nicely.
And that's the thing, is like, and as a storyboard artist of working in movies, and you mentioned this in your book, how you observed the directors at work, the DP at work, all the various, you know, crew members at work, and putting together
editors. I have a tremendous respect for editors now. You know, over the years, it's always interesting to go in, and sound design. You know, just. And again, the more movies you watch, you just mentioned Hitchcock and that, but Orson Welles and stuff, you know, you look at the old noir stuff, and it's, and
you know, the one film I watch movies based on filmmakers. So I've been doing the last 2 weeks of doing a whole David Fincher thing. So last night, so yesterday and then this morning has been all Seven. So I just been playing Sevens over and over again. And before that was this last weekend it was Michael Mann, and of course I had heat on with the director's commentary and just looping it. But I have to say that working, doing work as a storyboard artist, it puts you into a whole new area of appreciation to these filmmakers who I've there's like some movies I was never really a big fan of Seven until I just sat down.
The titles of Seven
Yeah.
were fantastic.
Yeah.
I love the titles.
Yeah. But just watching how Fincher, because I just rewatched Zodiac. That's actually my favorite Fincher film, as well as The Game. But the reason that what I love about his work is that he is able to he choreographs tension in scenes so well, just by as simple as visual elements, and just editing. It's just it's fascinating to watch.
One thing we haven't talked about is in actors.
Yes.
How great it is to have actors that can act.
Yeah.
And and when you watch people at their trade and their skill, and you realize, wow. And that was one of the funny things that kept coming across when you've got no actors and no budget and people.
Well, the audition process, and you had that one gentleman who came in who was just yelling the lines.
Shouting, yeah. And you know, because you hear the words that you've written.
Yeah.
As you've written them, and then you give them to somebody and go, stand, and you're like, whoa, that's not what, and that was funny. That was surreal in itself. I'm in a great big bloody studio. I'm in Granada Studio, and Granada Studios, Manchester. We're in the sound room. It's a huge gantried area. The grand piano. It's that with the countless rock and roll bands of my era, countless TV shows of my youth. I'm in there auditioning my actors, and not one of them.
Yeah.
And the only guy we missed, as I said, one of the fellas that would have so launched this film was Peter Kay. And being in America, I had no idea who Peter Kay was. And the equivalent to Peter Kay here would be Michael Hart, I guess. But I didn't know that then. And it was before Michael Hart got mega famous. But Peter Kay is the biggest comedian in the UK. But as an American, I don't think it would. I'm not sure if it plays here. I don't know even if you know him. But he was another one of the many characters that came in for a moment and went out. So that was that. Yeah,
and that's always, because I know that a friend of mine who has made 4 different low budget or short films, and I've been to a couple of his auditions, and but once after he made the first short film, he basically has just found his roster, like the
Tarantino and everybody
or Scorsese,
everybody uses the same guys because it's a team. They work together.
Yes.
And if you've got people that know what they're doing, because we're talking about the whole process. Imagine being able to do a take that was good. Then you can concentrate on everything else that's going to go, not that that's your job. Your job as a director is to bring that performance from, that's supposedly what the textbook definition of a director is. It's not, it's your job to pull out that performance. But it's, if that's all you've got to concentrate on making, so and again, I'm talking all this time of premising with it's the short film indie world that I'm talking about here, with aspirations to get to be Michael Mann. It's that's what it was about. But that was one thing that I've got tremendous respect for everybody that does anything in this industry. You can't do this. Is such a great big football team with so many people on it that that's what always scares me when I go and we talked about some of the characters that we end up working with, when some people get a bit prima donna about it, and well, they should. They've done hundreds of millions of dollars worth of business for the people that are with them. But sometimes people, you do see the cliched directors acting like they do, like like we talked about, there are characters in this. It brings out the best in people. It brings out the worst in people.
Yeah, it's like last week at Tonga Hut of all places, of course, but we had a mishmash of unions where we met and hung out with these electricians, and they were telling us their, some stories of on some sets that they've worked on. And then they had their friends who were actors that were in SAG, who just got into SAG, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And telling us the stories there. But it's always interesting because, and then I've met, on other sets, I've met like it and chatted with Grips, and it's just I think we talked about this too. It's like how people just don't really, the average person doesn't appreciate all that happens in pre-production and production on behind the scenes, and which I'm fine. I am so settled with just, working, behind the scenes, but it's like people don't understand what goes into making even like a short film. They just don't get it. And your book wonderfully like talks through these each area. There's like a little story at each level of getting this short film made, of getting to the point of like, I'm going to make this short film. I've started out this, this should be a feature. I want to make a movie of this, but you know what? Yeah, I need to make this a short film so that people can see, what the script is. But, you talk them through, and it's like, it's not a slim, like a little slim manual at all. No, because there's a lot that goes into making a short film.
I had to edit, believe it or not. Not I had to edit. Somebody took away 50,000 words of this.
Oh, Jesus.
I slagged a lot more people off than is in this book. And again, they said, there has to be structure to everything. You can't. Right. So it bowls along pretty well because somebody helped me get it to bowl along. But I worked with it. I want to do this. I did this. This was funny. That was funny. And it's, you need to pick and trim and choose, same as editing a script. It has to be the elements that propel it along. It can't wander.
Yeah. And so the next step then, I mean, I know it's you're on a break from this, but at some point, do you have an idea of when you want to come back to this to move forward?
For me, for coming back to it, all I can do is hopefully maybe somebody will read the book and then take up because in the UK, that bike, I thought it was a slam dunk as well. I didn't think I was just writing a coming of age script. So, it seemed to press so many buttons and still does. Even now, that subject matter has not been touched. There's a massive market out there for that, of guys my age, but it's not, the script is not for it's supposed to, if you're 14, you're supposed to get that script. If you're 20, if you're 40, if you're 50, 60, that's what it was supposed to be, timeless, but it has that hook that is universal. It's a universal coming of age script. So I'm pushing it as much as, maybe somebody will read the book. Maybe I'll get it under another producer's nose. Maybe I'll be doing a storyboard for some guy down the road or on one of the lots next week, and I can say, hey, Tim, hey, how about, or hey Marcus, what do you think? You remember me pushing this. Well, I'm pushing it again. Have you got any more ideas? And who knows, somebody might, it might get some traction. But also because what would I do now more than I've done? All I'm going to be doing is going through my IMDb Pro and sending it out to people that don't want to know whether it's a packet or not, and the gatekeepers and the firewalls. And I'm older now, so I have to realize that as well. I would rather see a scripts for much younger people, and even though we don't know who's written them when they come in. So yeah, I'm still at it. I have a little more confidence in maybe some of the other scripts that I'm pushing now. Again, I've used buttons. I don't know why. Some of the cheaper horror films that I've been doing, that it's hard to say what people will like and what people are going to take to.
Yeah.
But that's the job. It's not the creative. It's getting to sit in somebody's living room that is able to push it to somebody that has an ability to finance it, or at least put up. As I said, when I send it out now, people say, you know, how's that MG? Have you still got the, which is, I think is about $400,000. And I think the guys that I dealt with are still there at the places that, you know, came up with some money. But I can't be a producer as well. I can't. Otherwise it would have been made. Yeah.
But you know, yeah, I have to say a good example of who knows what people will like is this last year in film, because it was, you know, every, like I think I mentioned before, that every genre was firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was some wonderful movies. Like I love horror films, so I gravitate towards that genre. But there was some wonderful horror films that came out. But in speaking of a short film that became a feature is Smile. And once it became a feature, they removed the short film from online, but they put it back on, and so you can watch the short film of Smile on YouTube. Which was, I thought, was really smart of them to do. But besides that, there was like so many great little different movies you just would never expect in any other previous year to do so as well as it did.
Yeah.
And then there was like films that you thought would do well and they just didn't do well. But it's it seems like, you know, I think it's easier, and I wish Hollywood would stop trying to project this, but I think it's easier just to go by your guts, love what you do, and make the movie, and then, you know, see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to make the short, you know.
Yeah.
Now, because as a filmmaker, again, I would use all copyrighted music and not pay for the, you know, because I've seen that done. And then they come back and buy the rights, you know. I had the whole thing, it got scored. All those tracks are original to the short. All the tracks that you should have watch if you haven't, well, I don't think you have. The short film is on YouTube now. But all those tracks were scored, and they're smashing great pastiche pop glam of the era, 1974, you know, T-Rex.
That's cool.
Brian Ferry.
That's so cool. And you know, the thing, you know, I know I mentioned like Danny Boyle before, but previously, but it's just like I see, you know, something like this, you know, being directed by somebody like that.
Yeah, Velvet Octopus, all those people that produce those Danny Boyle stuff, all those, it's kicked around. I gotta get it. Yeah, you're making me think, yes, kick it out again. Yes, get it.
Well, you should, you know, I mean, it's like, so what better time to do it than now? You have a momentum from the book. So this, you know, and the short film is on YouTube, so anybody can watch that and get a good idea of like, oh, the possibilities here. But the thing,
you know, the book and the film are on Amazon. So it's, you know, it's that. Yeah.
That's just so awesome. Well, thank you, Mills. This was an awesome conversation, and people should get
this was an awesome conversation.
People should get your book. Those, you know, especially those interested and just like casually interested to those incredibly interested in making a movie.
Yes. I feel that we were going to shift 1 million. I tell you, on commission here. You guys, this is and somebody will pick the script up. Who knows? Yeah.
Well, it was so much fun listening to, especially, you know, your description of your time in England and this motorbike and how that came about and the meaning of it, and I was really enthralled, and I wish I had a movie to turn on after this discussion. So we all look forward to that in the future, and wish you lots of good luck in getting this done, so we do have an exciting movie to watch. And thank you guys all for tuning in. Thank you, Frankie, for hosting this, and thank you, Mill, so much for your lovely enthusiasm and your creativity and sharing it all with us. So with that, good night.
Thank you.